to learn to live the off-grid lifestyle and to be inspired to live your dreams, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Click the bell notification. It's all free. So today I thought I'd do a this or that video. I'm going to talk about several different topics. These videos really do well. I just don't understand it because everything that I've ever studied about YouTube says you're supposed to stay to one topic per video. But sometimes that's not possible to get a 10-minute video and an 11-minute video, whatever, and be able to talk about one topic for 11 minutes. You're just repeating yourself. So, as you know, I have been cleaning this area up down here the last several videos. Well, not last several, but last couple of weeks, I should say. And yesterday, I got quite a bit of this done. Knocked it all down. You can see it's just a big brush pile now. The chainsaw hit a piece of metal, so I sharpened the chain the other day. I would show you how I sharpen chainsaws, but I did that last year and I got a lot of criticism. Oh, that's not the way I do it. And the best thing to do is go to a YouTube video of professionals who do this for a living. There's a lot of tree service companies out there that really do a good job explaining how to sharpen chainsaws. I use those methods, but I don't know enough to be able to argue these points. I just know what I do works. So anyway, I sharpened the chainsaw yesterday, so I'll give it another day or two. I don't like pushing my back too hard on the chainsaw. It's a lot of work on the back. The older I get, the harder it is. But I've got a major portion of this done. So I got a couple cedar trees, a couple saplings. I would imagine I'll be able to get most of this clean the next time I come up here. And then all I got to do is just the cleanup work, getting all the brush and everything put away. And I don't know, I might do that next. I might not. I don't know. I might just let it lay here, clean it up on my convenience. I don't know. And the reason is because I got a lot I want to get done this year, this winter. This is when the poison ivy and the ticks and the snakes are gone. That means I can come out here in the woods and work without getting all chewed up. Last winter, I had a lot of plans and I just couldn't get them done because I was working on a tiny house. Tiny house just took priority. We had this winter vortex coming last winter, you may remember. That's what hit Texas and knocked out their power. I wanted to get the house in a livable condition before the vortex hit, and we made it. We made it by a month. So we was able to keep warm in the house. Although we didn't have dry firewood, we were able to stay warm. But there's a lot of things I want to do. I got 3 trees over here on the neighbor's yard, huge oaks that have died of oak wilt. I'd like to get those down, although it's just not a priority. I've got plenty of firewood now, so I don't really need to get more. There's a tree over here that I do want to get down, and it is a priority because it's going to kill a walnut tree. You got a walnut and an oak growing in together. There are actually branches, it's going to be hard to see through the sun, that have actually intertwined. So you might be able to see right up there that those 2 branches from the walnut and the oak have connected. So the walnut is in the back and the front tree is the oak. This walnut actually produced a lot of walnuts this year. It's going to be hard to see without me getting on the ladder. But this last summer, the 2 trunks, I don't know if you can see that, have decided to start pressing into each other. So they're probably grown into each other at that point. So I'm gonna have to cut that loose also. I feel relatively safe doing this tree because I can protect myself behind the walnut. I'm gonna explain all this. There's another example of the branches growing into each other, the trees and the branches. Right there. So I'll have to disconnect that also. Now the best thing to do on this is just cut it right here. Let the branch stay there. Just cut the branch off and just let this stay there. That way you don't damage the walnut. The oak will eventually die off and just fall off. But up there, you can see that walnut branch, it's starting to die. So having these 2 trees growing in together is causing both trees to die. Got to get them apart. I want to keep the walnut. Okay, now in order to make this work, I'm going to have to get on a ladder. Well, Carolyn absolutely will not let me get on a ladder to cut the trees. However, if I put the ladder behind the walnut, so I'm cutting the oak, the ladder is over here, I'm completely protected from the oak coming back and hitting the ladder or hitting me. Even if the tree decides, even if the oak decides to fall back onto the walnut, no problem, right? Because the walnut is going to keep me from getting hurt. So we've talked about this. I think she sees that it's okay. Now the other thing I got to worry about is the house is close by. I don't want this tree falling into the house. But the bigger problem is this tree right here behind me. This tree, when the oak falls, is going to fall into this tree. That's a big problem. If I cut it right down at the base of the oak, it's going to get snagged up. I'll never get it out of there. That's a massive oak too. It won't come out. It's on an embankment here. It'll be terrible. Well, the way you compensate for that, there's actually a way to find out where the tree will land. And what you do is you take a pole, stick it in your hand, put it up here underneath your arm, and that gives you a triangle. Again, there's a lot of YouTube videos on how to do that. And then you can just hold it up and see where it's going to land. So you come back here, you hold your stick up, and you can see it's going to come way past here. But if I cut high on the oak, not at the base, but high up, then that subtracts that distance. So let's say that's 10 feet that I'm going to cut up. That subtracts 10 feet of landing distance on this side because the tree will fall down. So I can get behind the walnut with my ladder, cut the oak down 10 feet up, and that subtracts 10 feet from this tree behind me. Well, then it clears. I've already done the math. I've already checked it all out. I won't be able to do much to keep this thing from falling back. It will probably fall back onto the walnut. Gravity is there. There's just not a lot I can do. Now I got to come along. I can pull it with a come along, or I can just, I've seen this done before. I can take a little scissor jack and I can put it in between the two trees and I can just jack this thing over. So that's a project I want to get done pretty soon, but I can't until that area down there is clean, because I want to get that clean to make sure that I can get the corn planted. Now another subject that I got going on is solar panels. It's not actually solar panels, it's watts. How do you find watts? It's a question that keeps coming up. I actually asked a poll question. Do you know how to find watts on your electric? How many watts does your appliance run? Now before I get into this, I got a video on solar panels, how to install them, the price tag, the whole thing. Yeah, and I'll put a link to that video at the end of this video. It'll be right on the screen. Some people are getting confused about this. It's at the end of this video on the screen. It'll pop up. You click that and take you to the solar panel video. You'll learn how to install the solar panels, but it also helps me promote this video. It tells YouTube that you like this video so much you're willing to watch another one. So I have 1,000 watts of solar panels per hour. So that means I can spend 1,000 watts when the sun is high in the sky, 1,000 watts per hour. But how do you find a watt? What is a watt? It's easy once you understand the math. Volts times amps equals watts. So if you wanted to go buy a generator, for example, and you know the generator is 2,000 watts per hour, you just got to keep your appliances underneath 2,000 watts. So I have a 2,000 watt generator. When we talk about volts, we already know what the volts in your house is. It's 120 volts. Your house is 120 volts. When you plug something into the socket, that's 120 volts. Everything in your house, unless you have 220, but that's a whole different story, is 120 volts. If you have 220, then it's 220 volts. But you'll know that. That's like your dryer, maybe your water heater. It's 220 volts. But everything else is 120. Your refrigerator, your freezers, 120 volts. Your well pump may be 220, mine's 120, but yours may be 220. And then all you gotta do is find the amps. I would say 99% of the appliances that I've ever looked at has always had amps on the tag somewhere, on the back of the fridge, on the back of something. I've got a wood stove that has an electric blower on it. I don't use it. There's a tag right on the blower, tells me how many amps it is. So it's there. So that means you take 120 times the amps that you find on the tag, that's how many watts you got. So let's say it's 1 amp. That's a pretty reasonable thing. My refrigerator is just under 1 amp, so 120 times 1 amp It's 120 volts. If it was 2 amps, it'd be 240 volts. So that means my generator can power that appliance. So all you really need is amps. That's all you need to find. Now, UL, which is a certification company for electrical appliance devices, I actually worked with them in the past. They were registrars, what they are. They require that companies identify how many amps are on their appliance on a tag somewhere. Now, things like motors, you can Google that kind of thing. I know that I have a 3/4 horsepower well pump. So you can Google how many watts is a 3/4 horsepower motor, and it'll tell you. So there's a lot of things you can find out on Google. My air conditioner, before I bought it, I knew it was a 5,000 BTU air conditioner. So I asked Google, it told me how many amps it was. Now the last conversation I want to talk about is chickens. I get a lot of people telling me that chickens are not going to survive the winter, and I just don't understand this. I mean, chickens have been around forever. Way before electricity, way before heat, chickens actually do very well in the winter. So I want to go through about, I don't know, 4 things maybe that you may need for your chickens in the wintertime. You're going to want a ventilated coop. Now, not so ventilated that rainwater can get into it, but ventilated means that the ammonia from their droppings can get out. So I have windows on mine here that air can get into and still keeps the rain out. You don't want your chickens to get wet. If they get wet, they will freeze. But you put a little straw down on the bottom of your coop, you give them a little bit of ventilation, and then you keep the rain and the snow out, and they'll be fine. You're also going to want to winterize your chicken run. Mine's already winterized for the most part. They don't like the snow. So on my chicken run, I got covers on them so snow can't get in here. Now, they also don't like the wind. On a cold, windy day, they'll stay in their coop. But what you'll do is you'll put a tarp around this, so they got someplace they can go and still get outside and, you know, get the sun rays, get some vitamin D. You're also going to want to put things that they can roost on. So I got all kinds of little toys in here they can stand on. They got some bricks and their water bucket and a little house, and you got this one. Look at that. She's hanging off right there. And so that way that keeps them off any snow that's on the ground or mud. They don't like the mud either. Another thing you're going to want to do is give them corn or scratch grain. Corn will put fat on them. So as it gets closer to the really below freezing weather, I'll start feeding them corn. That way they get some fat. You're also going to want to feed them some scratch grain in the evening time, because their body's going to have to digest that, and that'll give them extra warmth in the evening. Fresh water. I talked about this in a previous video. The water is going to be the hardest thing here. It's going to freeze. So I have to come out regularly and give them fresh water. Now, you can buy electric heated waterers for them. You can buy dog waterers. There's all kinds of things you could buy. We live off grid, so it would be hard to give them electric. So I just give them water 3 or 4 times a day to make sure they got enough water. They won't drink a lot, so that's not a big deal. Now, the things you don't want to do in the wintertime is you're not going to want to heat your coop. You put heat in there, a heat lamp, anything like that, more chickens die from coop fires than any other thing, except natural causes, of course. Another thing people do is put lights in there so they'll produce eggs. In the wintertime, they will reduce or stop producing eggs. I've never seen chickens actually stop producing eggs. I've always gotten eggs from them. Maybe not as many, of course not, but they still give me eggs. But again, a light not only stresses out the chicken, it could catch on fire. And one thing I saw the other day is people put sweaters on their chickens to keep them warm. Don't put sweaters on them. One of the things that keeps them warm is they'll fluff out their feathers, and it gives them more insulation because they've got air trapped inside their feathers now. You put a sweater on them, they won't be able to fluff out their feathers, and it'll actually make them colder. So if you'll check out that video about solar panels, I'd really appreciate it. You'll learn how to install solar panels cheap and easy. I think it's even titled Cheap and Easy, and it'll help the algorithm know that you like this video. So I hope I can inspire you to have big goals for your cold season. Thanks for watching.